Hi guys, and today we're gonna measure angles. So this is gonna be, I think, a pretty easy lesson, or at least it'll be easy after you watch my video. So which is this angle in degrees. So first, how do you measure an angle? So first, this protractor here, the angle here, it's already set up for us. So otherwise, the video I watched of how to use this needed some setting up, but this is already set up for us, so this is nice. But otherwise, let's first see which zero are we looking at. In a protractor, there can actually be two zeros, one over here, the other is usually the other is over here. But here we only have one zero, and that zero is over here, lined up with the zero and lined up with this right, you could say. So because this part is a zero, I have to see where the other line goes. The other line goes at exactly 80 degrees. So we can get out of the drawing and type 80 degrees as our answer. And it's correct. We can move on. Which image shows the correct way to measure an angle with the protractor? So in a protractor, if you remember, you first put it at the vertex, and the vertex is this, the middle in here. But there's in a semi circle kind of thing, the zero, the vertex is usually somewhere over here in a semi protractor that we often see. So the first way is that I'm just gonna put these old dashes here to make it more realistic, but we're not trying to measure an angle, but I just like to make things realistic. So first we're gonna have an I'm gonna do this in a different color so you can see better. First we're gonna have one angle coming up here, the other coming up over here, and this will be our angle. So you can see that one line is perfectly lined up with the zero, and this can be 180 then, because this will be a straight angle. So we measure the angle with whatever the tick mark is here, but here you can see in A, the 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 point of the angle for here, our point is over here. Our point is perfectly lined up with the vertex. But here, the point is all the way over here, nowhere near the vertex over here where you're actually supposed to get to. So um so you actually want to, so first step is to line up with vertex. Line that up with vertex. But here you can clearly see that it is not lined up with the vertex. So this is A cannot be an an option for us. Wrong. No way. This is going to B. B is lined up with the vertex. So our first step, line up with the vertex, matches up. So check. So now we can move this. So our first step is line up with the vertex. So we can check that off for line up with the vertex. Let's look at our next step. What's gonna be our next step? Our next step is line it up with the zero. The zero, but you can clearly see that about how here we lined this angle up clearly with the zero. So the angle, our angle has lined up with the zero perfectly, and our angle in zero is lined up perfectly, but that has not happened here. So again, you can clearly see that this is wrong. So B is also not possible. Let's move on to C. This, well, you can argue for B because B still has some way that you can measure the angle between here and here if you could count an area 0. So B doesn't, we're but we didn't line up with the 0, and here they've perfectly done it. So, and I corrected my work because it says choose two answers, and if A is definitely wrong because they even passed our first step, then B and C have to be correct. So let me try B and 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 C. That's correct because here, even though it's not lined up with the 0, even though it's not lined up with the 0, it is still lined up with the vertex, which is the most important thing. Even though we recommend lining up with the 0 since it'll be easier for us to measure. So here, it's not lined up with the 0, so it'll make it a bit tricky to measure, but don't fear, because you could see that you could tell any one of this angle 0, and our 0, I'm gonna count it as 80. So imagine our 80 is our 0. Right? So let's say this is 0. So this will be, so the 90 would become 10. So the 90 would become 10, and 100 would become 20. Because you see, if we think 80 equals to 0, then 90 must equal to 10, and 100 must equal to 20. But since our angle ends at 100, or more rightly to say 105, since it's like right in the middle of 100 and 110, then that's why it will be 20 degrees, or to more rightly say 25 degrees, I think. Okay, so we're on our last question, and this one is also pretty simple since this is lined up with the 0, so you don't have to do any extra math. As you can see, this lines up perfectly with their 90-degree angle, which is going to be a right angle, which you see pretty much a lot at angles. So 90 degrees will be it because it's lined up, because one side is lined up at 90 and the other side is lined up at 0. So we don't have to do any addition or subtraction. It just, if you want to do, you can think 0 equals to 0, so then 10 equals to 10, and it's basically not doing any math, so you can check. And we got this one proficient, so that'll be a wrap for today, guys. Bye.